Namaskar. My name is Professor Jonaraja. Welcome to Kashmir 101. Today we're going to talk about the last queen of Kashmir, Kota Rani. But first we must talk about the history of Kashmir. Before the 14th century, the northern Indian state of Kashmir was a peaceful and predominantly Hindu society. The Raja Tirangini chronicled the lives and times of many Kashmiri kings that ruled through the ages. For a long time, history has been about the study of great men. But today we focus on a strong symbol of feminine greatness, Kota Rani. She was the last Hindu ruler of the Valley of Kashmir before it was passed on to Muslim rulers for the next 500 years. Our story begins in the early 14th century. The current king is King Sahadeva, whose prime minister and commander-in-chief is Ramachandra. Sahadeva, albeit different from the drunks, gamblers, and etc. that had previously ruled Kashmir, was still a coward. In 1319 AD, two new men arrived to the beautiful valley of Kashmir. First was Shamir, a Muslim adventurer seeking economic opportunity. Second was Rinchen, a Buddhist prince from Ladakh seeking refuge. Sahadeva appointed these two men as two of his powerful courtiers. A few months later, Zulgadar Khan, a Tartan adventurer, also known as Dulcha, invaded Kashmir. Sahadeva, scared and cowardly, fled Kashmir. This caused him to become unpopular amongst the remaining public. Kashmir was now without a king, and Ramachandra, Shamir, and Rinchen were all fighting for the crown. Rinchen took this moment of weakness and attacked Sahadeva's remaining empire. He killed Ramachandra and held the rest of Ramachandra's family hostage. Kota Rani is first introduced here as the daughter of Ramachandra. She was a young, beautiful, alert, and brave woman. Rinchen asked to marry her and she agreed. Kota Rani became Rinchen's queen. Kota Rani helped Rinchen, who was a Buddhist, embrace the Kashmiri culture of Shaivism. However, when Rinchen wanted to fully convert himself into a Shivite, the orthodox Kashmiri Pandits discouraged and disowned him. Rinchen then turned to Bulbul Shah, who showed him Islam. Rinchen found solace in Islam and converted. He changed his name from Rinchen to King Saddaruddin. Now Kota Rani was stuck with a Muslim husband. However, she clung to her Hindu faith, while at the same time never raised any objections of King Saddaruddin and his rulings. King Saddaruddin built the first mosque in Kashmir, named Kankha, in honor of his savior Bulbul Shah. And Kota Rani never objected. In fact, it was not just Kota Rani who did not object the king's Islamic faith. More than 10,000 Kashmiris accepted Islam during the 3 years of Rinchen's rule. Kashmir had prospered in a golden age. Kota Rani and Saddaruddin had a son together named Haidar, who was to be raised as a Muslim. He was given to the trusted courtier Shamir to be raised. While all seemed like paradise in Kashmir, there was actually a storm brewing. Sahadeva's brother, Udayanadeva, was angry that Kashmir had been overtaken by an outsider from Ladakh, also called a Bhutta. He conspired to assassinate King Saddaruddin. In November of 1323, Tukka and his conspirators, a group motivated by Udayanadeva, killed King Saddaruddin, who had been king for only 3 short years. After seeing the horror take place, Kota Devi refused for Haidar to suffer the same fate and refused his claim to be the next king. As much of a forgiving and blessed spirit as Kota Rani was, Kota Rani then invited Udayanadeva into her kingdom, made him the new king of Kashmir, and made him her new husband. Because Kota Rani was the most powerful and influential personality in Kashmir at the time, no one questioned her decision of crowning Udayanadeva. However, she had lost her chance at becoming the queen. Shamir became unsettled with the new placement of the crowned king as well as Kota Rani's new marriage. He was jealous of Udayanadeva and his appointed crowning, yet continued to show gratitude towards the couple as a facade for his future intentions. However, Udayanadeva resulted in being a failure as a leader, leaving Kota Rani disappointed and dissatisfied. He reigned for 15 years, yet did not accomplish any noble reform. He was chicken-hearted and did not help the Kashmiri people in any shape or form. Because of Udayanadeva's incompetent ruling, the Kashmiri people began to lose faith in Hindu rulers due to the degrading reputation Udayanadeva had placed for himself. Instead, Kota Rani took the burden of ruling the Kashmiri people. While Udayanadeva lazily bathed for hours and spent money thoughtlessly, Kota Rani tended to the concerns and duties of the people. Trouble struck in 1330 AD when Achala and his army invaded Kashmir from the south. Udayanadeva, scared and cowardly, fled from Kashmir, just as his brother Suhadeva had done in times of intrusion. Yet to the rescue came Kota Rani the brave, who stood firmly unlike her fearful husband and promised to protect Kashmir and the people. She opened negotiations with Achala and forced him to retreat, leaving Achala and his army packing to where they came from. In times like these, Kota Rani showed her true colors of bravery and powerful leadership when Kashmir needed it the most. After the invasion, dark clouds continued to loom over Kashmir, and the mischievous Shamir took advantage of this opportunity. He intentionally prepared to risk his life for the invaders in order to prove to the people of Kashmir his nationalism. Udayanadeva returned after the invaders fled and began asking Kota Rani for forgiveness. In the spirit of misplaced generosity, Kota Rani exonerated him and reinstalled him as king. In the meantime, Shamir was scheming to become king. Through defending Kashmir in times of fear, he was reserving himself a place in the hearts of the people. Fearful of the power Kota Rani held, he began to spread hate about Kota Rani to his followers in hopes of discrediting her. Yet throughout this, Kota Rani remained firm and determined to serve as queen to her people. One day, the Lord of Kampana, instigated by Shamir, openly disobeyed Kota Rani's orders. In an attempt to express her strength, Kota Rani chastised the Lord of Kampana. However, this action resulted in the courageous Kota Rani to be thrown in jail. To her luck, one of her loyal trustees by the name of Minister Kamarabhatta freed her shortly after. In February of 1338 AD, King Udayanadeva died, finally giving Kota Rani the opportunity to reign independently as queen. Kota Rani and Udayanadeva had a son together named Bola Ratan, who was brought up by Bhikshana Bhutta, a rival of Shamir. Kota Rani, who now felt threatened by Shamir's mischief, disclaimed both Hyder and Bola Ratan from the throne. Finally, Kota Rani seized the opportunity and made the momentous decision of assuming the sovereignty and of ruling Kashmir as the queen. In the beginning of her 5-month reign, the queen appointed Bhikshana Bhatta as her prime minister instead of Shamir, which highly offended him. This became the last straw for Shamir. He began to openly retaliate and revolt against Kota Rani. Kota Rani, who now began to fear Shamir, escaped to the fort of Abhiyana Tarkat. Shamir, deceiving as he was, followed the queen to Abhiyana Tarkat and feigned an illness. Kota Rani, naturally caring in nature, sends Bhikshana Bhatta to visit Shamir at his deathbed. When Bhikshana Bhatta arrived, Shamir unexpectedly stabbed Bhikshana in his heart with a wooden dagger, ultimately killing the loyal trustee of Kota Rani. Kota Rani found out that many of her courtiers were actually in alliance with Shamir. They convinced her to exonerate Shamir by telling her that it is not just to chastise the father of your child. Kota Rani therefore decides to exonerate Shamir and not punish him. The Shamir that had arrived 27 years earlier just to find a job had now become the new mastermind of the beautiful Kashmir Valley in 1339 AD. A few months later, in 1339 AD, Shamir asks for Kota Rani's hand in marriage. Although Shamir was much older than Kota Rani, her drive to restore freedom to the motherland drove her to say yes to Shamir. She was prepared to go through many trials and tribulations in order to see her desire of reigning a Hindu rule over the beautiful land. However, Kota Rani and Shamir's relationship was toxic. The two fought tirelessly. She could not bear being the wife of a foreigner and a traitor. Shamir had her arrested the next morning by Tikshana, the police chief. Overpowered by her grief and dismay, Kota Rani succumbed to committing suicide in July 1339 AD. Overall, Kota Rani was an optimist and an idealist. She was a remarkable figure in the history of Kashmir who has played a distinguished role to defend the independence of her homeland. Kota Rani was dealt many difficult cards, but she overcame them and persevered for the greater good. Her desire to preserve Kashmir with Hindu rulers shone through each and every step of the way. While she was only truly queen for 5 months, she held the government's power for over a decade. And I leave you with a few parting words. Kota Rani is like a canal. As the canal that Kota Rani built nourishes the cultivated fields of Kashmir with water, Kota Rani nourished the people of Kashmir with knowledge and liberty.